You have to trust me that when I tell you that these two beautiful girls right here, I did nothing to them, and to my beautiful wife, I did nothing to her. I didn't think anything like that could happen. I didn't think I'd ever do it, but I did. I put my hands around my wife's neck. I looked at her and I on top of her. And
I didn't know she was dead.
He looked her in the eye and he told her he did nothing. That's the sound you need to hold on to for the next few minutes, because everything else in this story, the wedding ring, the makeout sessions, the woman who packed up her whole life to move closer to a prison, none of it makes sense unless you remember that one thing first. Chris Watts lied to everyone, right up until he couldn't anymore. In August of 2018, a man in Colorado stood in front of cameras and begged the public to help find his missing wife. Shannan Watts was pregnant with their third child.
I was in a really, really, really bad place. And I got a friend request from Chris on Facebook. And I was like, oh, what the heck? I'm never going to meet him. Except, one thing led to another. And 8 years later, we have 2 kids. We live in Colorado. And he's the best thing that has ever happened to me.
Their 2 little girls, Bella and Celeste, were gone too. He cried. He asked people to pray. And the whole time, he already knew exactly where they were. He'd strangled Shannan in their bedroom. Then he suffocated Bella, 4 years old, and Celeste, 3, and pushed their bodies through an 8-inch opening into crude oil tanks at the site where he worked.
Watts strangled Shannan, who was pregnant with their son, Nico. After strangling her, Chris Watts suffocated his little girls, Bella, who was only 4, and Cece, who was 3. Then, after suffocating these precious children, he shoved them through an 8-inch hole into a crude oil container where he worked, leaving marks on their little heads from shoving them through the holes into those crude oil containers. And he buried Shannan in a shallow grave. That's what Chris Watts did.
He buried Shannan in a shallow grave nearby. His unborn son, Nico, never took a breath outside her body. That's the crime. That part isn't in question. Watts confessed. He's serving 5 life sentences and will never leave prison. So here's where this story should end. It doesn't. Because right now, in 2026, Chris Watts has a wife. A new one.
She sure is mysterious, Nancy. So her name is Lizzy Henderson, and what we know about her is that she's a 39-year-old realtor. She was living in Cleveland, Ohio, just doing multiple jobs, and she basically was in a lot of, different relationships with, it seemed like, older men. Nothing seemed to ever, she never got married. She was pretty much living a single life, and we don't really know how she met Chris, but they've been together for, we could say with certainty, since 2024. And she basically picked up and moved from Cleveland, Ohio to Racine, Wisconsin, to be closer to the prison where he is going to be in for the rest of his life.
Her name is Lizzy Henderson. She's 39. She was a realtor living in Cleveland. And at some point, nobody outside the 2 of them knows exactly when or how, she started writing to him. By 2024, she'd left her life in Ohio behind and moved to Racine, Wisconsin, to be near the prison where he's held for the rest of his life. She legally changed her last name, she wears a wedding band, and according to a witness who saw them together in the visiting room, there was nothing quiet about it. Hugging, kissing, a paid-for photo together before she left. Wisconsin doesn't allow conjugal visits. That's the part that stopped a lot of people cold when this story broke. So how does a man serving 5 life sentences end up with a bride, a ring, and a visiting room photograph with his arm around her?
I don't think he can. Wisconsin is a non-conjugal visit state, Nancy, so
Well,
I'm
guess
not
what?
sure
He has. It's happening.
I'm telling you, they're not supposed to
It's
let
already
that
happened.
Yeah.
Nanny, boo boo, don't do that again. It's already happened. How is it happening?
So Nancy, even though he's incarcerated for the rest of his life, he still enjoys the same constitutional rights that we do. That includes the right to have visitors, the right to be married. As sick and as disgusting
I'm
as
sorry,
it may be.
put him up. I'm sorry, I'm looking at the Constitution, the pocket Constitution I carry with me. I don't see anything in here about a 3-time, some would argue 4-time convicted killer having a right to conjugal visits. The Constitution does not have the word conjugal in it. In one place, would you like to tell everybody what conjugal means?
Conjugal means intimacy.
Intimacy. Okay, what? Look around. Are you in pre-K? No. Conjugal visits means visits, like Jorn Vandersloot has with all the women that come to see him. I believe he's fathered 2 children since he was behind bars. That's what conjugal visits mean. Oh dear, take him down. The sight of him makes me ill.
Nancy,
that's what a conjugal visit is. And I don't see anywhere where the founding fathers said, convicted killers have a right to get it on.
But he hasn't had conjugal visits. Is there an allegation that he's had with this woman? I don't think there is.
Head blowing off. Dave Mack, can you please help Franz Borghardt? It's already happened. There are witnesses that saw the steamy makeout session behind bars on visiting day.
Nancy, in Wisconsin, in this prison, each inmate is allowed 8 to 10 seconds of physical contact with their visitor when the person arrives and when they leave. But for anybody who's familiar with how the prison system works and are witnesses in there that saw the makeout session, it can go much longer than the 8 to 10 seconds. Once you allow touching, it goes as far as they can possibly take it. And that's what apparently is happening. Guards just turn the other way.
To Ruth Bashinsky joining us, investigative crime reporter at Daily Mail, who broke this story. There are steamy makeout sessions going down. I don't know who this woman is, but before I get to who is Mysterious Lizzie, what can you refresh Franz Borghardt's recollection? In other words, talk some sense into him. It's happening. It's not supposed to happen. It's already happened.
Nancy is right, Franz. It is happening. They did get married somehow. We attempted to get those records, and what we were getting some pushback from, I guess, the officials in Wisconsin, because unless I was next of kin, they wouldn't release any information about what officially went down with Lizzy Henderson and Chris Watts. But what we know is that she was wearing a wedding band, a wedding ring. She legally changed her name to Lizzy Watts.
The honest answer is smaller and stranger than a conspiracy. Inmates keep their constitutional right to marry. Visits allow brief physical contact at arrival and departure, 8 to 10 seconds officially. What happens inside that window, with guards who may or may not be paying close attention, isn't something the rest of us get to see. Nobody broke him out. Nobody smuggled him anything. The system just has a gap in it, and Lizzie Henderson walked into it.
To Ruth Bashinsky joining us, investigative crime reporter at Daily Mail, who broke this story. Ruth, what can you tell me about the prison visit?
So Nancy, I found this woman. She actually was visiting a loved one at the Dodge Correctional facility where Chris is staying in for the rest of his life. And she was actually in shock because Chris was a few feet away from her. She was with her person, just having a snack. The next thing she knows, she turns around and sees Chris Watts with this woman. They were reading the Bible together. She was kind of having like a silent freak out, like turning around going, does anyone see what I'm seeing? This is Chris Watts. He killed his wife and unborn son and 2 little daughters. And she was kind of having like a moment, and she walked closer to him so she can see his name tag that said Chris Watts. And she told me that she so wanted to say to him, you're my hero, Daddy's my hero. But obviously she knew she would get kicked out of the facility if she did. But she was thinking what we're all thinking. Why is he allowed to have this so-called girlfriend, now wife? And she was just as, agitated as we were, like thinking, how could this go on? And when I spoke to Lizzie on the phone, she basically she was very angry that I was actually trying to find her. She was angry that I was reaching out to family members. She did not want to be called. She doesn't want to be in the public eye. She basically was very defensive of being with Chris. And she was saying like it was between her, Chris, and God. And that, people could perceive their relationship as being very strange and weird. And Chris knows how she feels, but she said that, basically it's really no one's business. And, she's kind of like an alternative universe, I feel like. She just is in denial with these heinous crimes that he committed. And she doesn't want to be in the public eye. And she's telling me she's a very private person. But meanwhile, she's with America's most hated person in the world, killer dad.
And here's the part that actually deserves your attention, because it isn't new. It's a pattern. Chris Watts is not the first convicted killer to find someone waiting for him. Ted Bundy married while on death row. Charles Manson had a fiancée decades after Sharon Tate.
Bride, the mysterious Lizzie Henderson, is not the first woman to fall for and marry a convicted killer.
Until death do us part, a forever promise to have and to hold. But what if you can't hold them? What if they're behind bars for murder? Ted Bundy, Charles Manson, the Menendez brothers, Chris Watts, they all found love in lockup. As a victim of violent crime myself, these murder matchups behind bars are very hard for me to understand. Why do women marry men who murder? Why, with all the men in the world, would anyone ever marry a murderer?
It feels wonderful. I'm so happy. I'm so thrilled, very proud, and a little relieved that the bulk of the day is over, and just hopefully I can enjoy the rest of my day in peace with Richard's family and think about the importance of what happened today.
That from our friends at Fox Nation, marrying a murderer, and from Hard Copy, that was Doreen Loy, Richard Ramirez's wife. But there's more.
Have you ever found somebody that you kind of feel like kind of saved you when you lost yourself? I almost feel like he's like my lighthouse. He guided me back to where I really needed to be.
Gonzalez admits he takes the butt of a gun and beats Thornburg repeatedly in the head, bashing his skull in and leaving him on the floor to bleed out and die. Gonzalez confessed and he pled guilty. In court, under oath, he pleads guilty to a brutal murder.
But it didn't matter to his prison bride, and we see it played out again now with killer dad Chris Watts. That's from our friends at Fox Nation, and you were hearing Kathy Gonzalez, Tattoo Gonzalez's wife.
Richard Ramirez, the Night Stalker, married a woman who told reporters the world just didn't know him the way she did. There's a name for this, and it isn't romance. Psychologists who study it point to something simple and a little uncomfortable. For some people, a man behind bars is safer than a man who's free.
What spell that is, I'm not sure, but listen.
He just kind of pulled the next to me, and
he rolled down the passenger window, and I rolled down, my window, and he was like, come in, or like, unlocked it. He's like, get in here or whatever. And he was very sure, very forward, very sure of himself. He was able to turn on the charm for anything he needed.
From our friends at Daily Mail. Okay, I need help. A guy comes up, rolls down the window and says, get in, and you just jump in? Okay, to Dr. Geraldine Utter joining us, clinical psychologist specializing in psychological evaluations just like this, author of Mainlining Philly, Survival Hope Resisting Drug Addiction, author of Aftershock, How Past Events Shake Up Your Life Today, and producer and star of Utter Nonsense. Help me out. He rolls down the window and says, get in, and she just jumps in like curb service. Like at a Sonic, you pull up, you toot toot, and they bring you a hamburger like that.
Like that, exactly like that. So I think it's important to pay attention to what she said after that. She said he was very forward. She indicated that he was very assertive. And there's something that I kind of want to bring to everyone's attention. There's a psychological concept, Nancy, called the halo effect. And the halo effect has to do with what somebody looks like. So people who are perceived objectively as more attractive or handsome, they tend to, like, positive traits get associated or attached to them. Whereas somebody who's less attractive.
Wait, you think he's handsome, Dr. Geraldine? I think he looks like Satan.
He looks like Satan to you, but there are people and women out there that find him attractive. And don't put me in that list, because I'm with you, Nancy. I don't feel as though he's attractive at all. But there's a concept called the halo effect, a psychological concept. And that concept has to do with people who are perceived as attractive. It's hard for you to associate bad things with them. So if you're attractive and you're good looking, then people can't, wrap around their heads that they could do something like this. They essentially get away with more, which is a perfect concept or quality to have if somebody perceives you as attractive, and to also be a sociopath, which is what Christopher Watts is.
He can't show up unannounced. He can't hit you when he's angry. Everything you know about him comes through letters he writes and visits he controls. You get the version of him he wants you to see, and never the one his victim saw. That's not speculation about Lizzie Henderson specifically. Nobody watching this knows what's actually in her head, and I'm not going to pretend I do either. What we do know is that Watts himself has a documented pattern of exactly this kind of split. Before Shannan died, there were other women, including one who has spoken publicly about how quickly he turned from charming to frightening once they were alone.
I didn't find out she was disappeared, like she had gone missing, until he was being investigated. I remember I was doing a haircut at the, and it came on the radio. The radio we were listening to at work, and they had said something about husband of Shannan, and they said Chris Watt. And I was like, that sounds so familiar, but I didn't think anything of it. And then I was scrolling through their Facebook, and I saw a little article, I recognized his face. I kind of put the two and two together. I'm like, and that's kind of just, it kind of kicked off from there. I felt horrible for her and those little girls. That was initially, just devastated on us. If he had the capacity to do that to his own family, I'm just, some chick he messed with. I hate the things that I let him do to me. I hate the things that I put up with from him. I hate the things that, if getting away with what he was doing to me gave him a little bit more confidence to, treat the next one worse.
A different side of him, she said, that showed up almost like a switch flipping. The prosecution's own case built on the idea that the calm, sad husband on television and the man capable of what happened in that house were the same person, wearing two faces. There's one more detail that a lot of people can't get past. The wedding ring Lizzie Henderson wears in those prison photos, nobody outside the family has confirmed where it came from.
Shannan's wedding rings that Lizzie is wearing?
Oh, dear Lord in heaven. Okay, Ruth Bashinsky. These are shots from the Daily Mail, and with us is Ruth Bashinsky, who broke the story, the investigative crime reporter at Daily Mail. Is he using his dead wife's wedding band and rings with Lizzie Henderson?
What, Nancy? Liz, that is literally the first thing that went through my mind. I'm like, that has got to be Shannan's rings. I mean, where would he get them? But we are looking into that right now, Nancy, because I need to find out where those rings came from. I doubt they came from, I don't know where they're from, but it seems like it could be Shannan's.
Bashinsky, Ruth. I guarantee you this. He did not get them at the prison commissary.
I believe you, Nancy.
What's on record is this. After Shannan's murder, Watts told investigators he'd taken her rings off and set them on a nightstand. His family kept some of his belongings. Whether that ring made it from Shannan's finger to Lizzie's is still an open question, and it's the kind of question that makes your stomach turn a little just from asking it. So where does that leave this? A man who methodically ended his entire family, who lied to the country's face while doing it, has a wife again. He has someone who visits him, who defends the relationship as being between her, him, and God, who said publicly that it's nobody else's business. Under Wisconsin's Son of Sam law, he can't profit from telling his story. There's an open question about whether she can, and about a bankruptcy filing in her name shortly before the move, which is the kind of detail that either means nothing at all or means everything, depending on what else comes out.
Let's thinky.
According to content creator Plunder, please go over, subscribe to her channel, give her credit where it's due. Lizzie filed a Chapter 7 bankruptcy before moving from Ohio to Wisconsin. Why do I bring this up? And why does Plunder bring it up as well? I mean, we're not here to air dirty laundry. Like I said, a lot of us have known about Lizzie for 2 years and have said nothing because we care about this woman's genuine safety. It's not about going after her because she's with Chris Watts. We're here to be like, honey, we want you to find Jesus and get away from Chris Watts. But anyway, I digress. So the reason we bring up the Chapter 7 bankruptcy is it would show motive as to why would you marry Chris Watts.
Nobody's saying she's in danger the way Shannan was. He'll never have the freedom to become the man he was in that house again. Prison guarantees that much, whatever else it fails to guarantee. But the question this case keeps forcing back into the open is one true crime has never fully answered. Why do intelligent, capable people fall for men everyone else already knows the truth about? Is it hope? Is it control?
The Many Faces of Christopher Watts, a 5-year update. You worked with him extensively creating those 2 books. Is he that charming that he could literally charm the pants off this woman?
Not to me, he's not, but I can see why some women who maybe have a need for the extra affection or attention, or maybe something happened in their, I'm not a psychiatrist, so I'm not able to say exactly what happened, but why she would want someone like that, it's got to be attention seeking, like they've said, or that she's had something in her
look at your
past
screen,
happen to
Sherilyn.
her.
Look at your monitor.
Yes.
That's a sheet that Shannan was wrapped in.
She had the baby in that sheet.
The dirt, the blood, that's where she gave birth to baby Nico. And then he just shoveled the dirt on her face.
Is it just that some people would rather love a fantasy than face what's actually true? I don't have a clean answer for you. I don't think anyone does. What I do know is that 4 people never got to have an opinion on any of this, because Chris Watts made sure of that in one night in August of 2018. Tell me what you think happens next. And tell me, if it were your sister, your daughter, writing letters to a man like this, what would you actually say to her?